Hello, Remnants. Thank you for joining me on another episode here at Remnant Rising. I'm your host, Selena Blackston. This may be a perfect opportunity if the Lord has been speaking to you in your heart about a project or a business that has been on your heart for so long. And I wanted to share a blog that I wrote last year about my journey and how God called me out of corporate America. I was working in human resources for many years, and I was just burned out on both ends with working long hours and really no time for my children. All the things that the successful world makes you believe that you have to do, right? The 9 to 5. And I just knew that I was already going through my spiritual awakening, I'll call it, in 2012. And the Lord was really dealing with me on a lot of things. And I was having a lot of visions and dreams that year. And the Lord was really speaking to me about a lot of things. And so I want to share this blog that I wrote, and hopefully this will encourage someone to be able to step out on faith. If you're looking to start that project, you're looking to start that business idea that God put on your heart, because I do believe that this is a year that we are to step out into our calling, because not only is it a way for us as Christians to make money, but it's also gives us the freedom to serve the Lord, to be able to walk in our callings, to do the things that the kingdom is showing us to do, right, for the Lord. So this blog is called "These Boots Were Made for Walking." These boots were made for walking. It was a winter night, and I was cold and restless, trying to go to sleep. It was not unusual for me to have insomnia, but this particular night I could not get comfortable. All of a sudden, the voice of the Lord told me to get up, and my heart was racing because I heard his audible voice tell me to get up, and I covered my head with a blanket. I was thinking, is this in my head? I heard him again. "Arise," he said a little bolder. This time I was frozen like a rock, and then he spoke even bolder for the third time. "Arise, my daughter." And I quickly just jumped out of my bed, and I turned on the light, and I said, "Yes, Lord." He then said, "Look under your bed." In my mind, I said, "Look under my bed? What is under there?" So I got down on all fours and I looked. He spoke again, and he said, "Now take all of your shoes. Now take all of your shoes out and throw them on the back porch." His voice was so sweet and loving, and his presence was so beautiful, it overwhelmed me in my room. I didn't even think twice about what he asked me to do. I quickly gathered all the long bags, my containers, everything, all my organizers where I had stored all of my designer heels. And I dragged them down the hallway like a garbage bag, and I opened the back door and I just slung them on the back porch in the middle of the night. I went back to bed and I slept like a baby that night. I will never forget it. So the next morning I woke up to get ready for work, and I did my normal routine. I was getting ready, the normal hustle and bustle of getting the kids ready and trying to find something to wear. And when I went to go find some heels to wear, by then I had forgotten what happened the night before. The only shoes that were left in my closet were a pair of black combat boots. I guess that will have to do, I thought. I slapped them on and ran out the house with the kids. On my way out, my daughter Angelica asked me, "Why are you wearing those shoes, Mom? And why are all your shoes on the back porch?" I just quickly grabbed her. I said, "Don't ask any questions. Come on, we're running late." Finally got the kids to school, headed down the back country roads to get to the city. I love to take these long 30 to 40-minute rides in the mornings because those are my times with the Lord. I remember so many conversations with Jesus on those country roads. Those were absolutely the most amazing times in my life with him. So that morning, I just remember I was laughing and I was tickled about what happened to me the night before. And I laughingly asked the Lord, "What was that all about? Why did you have me throw out all my designer heels?" And he said to me, as clear as the day was long, because where I am taking you, you can't wear those high heels. I will never forget that moment, because from that moment forward, the Lord began to take me on a journey through the wilderness that I can never forget. He was right. Where he took me, there was no way that I could have worn those high heels. I needed those combat boots to help me to get through the next 3.5 years. In the months leading up to this, the Lord had opened my visions and dreams. I was up all hours of the night, indulging in the prophecies of His Word as He began to unfold revelation upon revelation. I found myself surrounded by history books and researching the past because of the visions and dreams that He was giving to me. I call the year 2012 the year of my spiritual awakening. As a little girl, I always had dreams and visions, but never talked about these things to anyone, and was afraid of how I would dream of these things and how they would come to pass. It was during this time that the Lord began to minister to me and explain to me the call and the gifting that He placed on my life. I did not run from it anymore, and I was no longer afraid to go meet Him on those highest mountains. Wherever that He would take me, I wanted to be there. The following year, I continued to work in my career in corporate America, human resources for a very large international manufacturing company. Even though I was not hurting financially and finally had recovered from a horrible divorce, I felt as though I was working to live. I was watching the kids grow up, but not able to spend time with them the way that I wanted to. It was the typical struggle of all things that moms deal with. We were created to nurture and to be with our children. It is in our hearts to have that desire. For many years, I worked hard to obtain the status that my heart desired, yet I was left empty and completely unsatisfied every day of my life. But Jesus was with me, and He showed me that I was made for so much more than what I was living for. I was on a drive back home from work one spring day, and this day I left work completely frustrated and exhausted. I was in complete silence. I didn't want to think about my day. I didn't want to think about where I was going. I just wanted to go cook that night when I got home. I just wanted to be in silence. And in that silence, the Lord whispered to me and He said, "Start your own business, start your own boutique." Out of nowhere, out of a place that I had never even considered anymore. A buried dream from my childhood was now at the surface and breaking the silence. A rush came over me, and I began to ask all the questions one would ask. How, Lord? With what money? And where? And how? What? When? Where? I pondered on what He would say all the way home, and what it would be like to have all my dreams come true. I got the kids, and I went home to go on with my normal routine. A few nights later, I had the most vivid dream. I was on top of a ledge looking down at the water below. It was crystal clear, and I could see everything in it. In the distance, there were rocks and waves that were crashing against it. It was dark and cloudy in the distance. Down below, I could see all my friends in the water cheering me on, telling me to jump. I was afraid of heights, and the thought of just jumping off of a cliff, it terrified me. Like even now, I'm stumbling over my words because I still have a fear of heights. But what if I hit the side of the cliff, I thought? What if I get hurt? What about the crashing waves? I yelled down to them, and they said, "Come on, jump on in. The crashing waves are all the way over there. You can do it." I looked all around, and I was hesitant. I looked at my clothes and what I had on. It was my usual black business suit and my high heels. I can't jump. Fear began to creep in. Then, all of a sudden, from behind me, I heard the voice of the Lord say to me, "The hardest part about the jump is jumping." And I knew then I was just taking a leap of faith. I held my arms up and I said, "It's all for your glory." And as soon as I was going to jump, I woke up in a pool of sweat out of the dream. No, I thought in my head, I have to go back to sleep. I was like, I want to see what happened. Every time I would try to go back to sleep, I would wake up as soon as I was about to jump. I would wake up again. After the third time, I woke up. The Lord woke me indefinitely to this song, The Voice of Truth. I'm sure you've heard it, by Casting Crowns. It came to me like angels singing, and I quickly got my phone to the YouTube song. I had heard it so many times on the radio before, but never really resonated with me until that morning. As I sat up in my bed and I listened to the lyrics before the crack of dawn, I cried. I cried and I wept. I knew He was calling me out of this career, out of this corporate America rat race that I was in, and I was going to be taking my leap of faith. So for the next few days, I was in a daze. All I could think about was the dream and the song that the Lord gave me. There was confirmation upon confirmation as the Lord was even giving me my closest friends' words and dreams to show me the way that He wanted me to go. After 3 days, I put in my 2 weeks notice at work and I moved forward into finding a space for the boutique. Supernaturally, everything came together: the space, the inventory, the supplies, the money. I could go on and on of the Lord's provision. I felt like an Israelite that just left Egypt, and the Lord blessed me and provided me supernaturally to leave and go into the desert. Do not think that everything was smooth sailing because I thought that I was going to be a complete success and become extremely wealthy. Well, it was quite the contrary. It was just the beginning of one of the most greatest oppositions I would ever have to face in my entire life. The first few months of opening was very exciting and overwhelming as I was learning to streamline my own business instead of HR training systems. It was a challenge and I loved it. Opportunities opened up to collaborate with others and who were on the same path as me. And it was just amazing how the Lord placed people into my life whom He had called out for kingdom assignments. I was meeting other business owners, artists, single moms who were trying to make it too. And before I opened the doors for my grand opening, the Lord gave me specific direction on what my mission was in the shop that I was about to open. The mission was to be unique, to be different, to be set apart, picking out only garments that are pleasing, classy, yet fashionable and vintage. The women that I would learn to style would be taught to find their own unique selves, showing them how God sees them and not following the trends of the world. He wanted women to remember the beauty of the past and that vintage pieces are timeless. It was all about finding who you are on the inside and reflecting that on the outside through dress. He had already given me the name Blue Butterfly and a logo that captivates all things new through the restoration of remnants. It was a vision of how we are much like the remnants of these garments that are tossed to the side, thinking that they are of no value or impossible to restore. But through my shop, I was making them new again, saving them, restoring them, reconstructing them, making beautiful pieces from them. Isn't that like our Father and how He does in our lives? We think that we're not good enough. We are just tossed aside, not able to be used. But then He comes in, He takes fragmented parts of our lives and He reconstructs it, making us whole and new again, so that beautiful can come out of our pieces. We take that and we share it with others of how God changed our lives and makes us beautiful again. That was the vision that He wanted me to do through the store, through the remnants of clothing. He told me His healing powers were on each garment through the work of His hands in me, and that every woman that would wear these garments would be healed and fall in love with Him again. That was 4 years ago. Well, I wrote this 4 years ago, so it was actually 10 years ago. I have encountered countless women and young girls through Blue Butterfly Vintage whom I had the honors to style. I had many fashion shows to raise money for local churches and nonprofit organizations. We had a lot of parties and gatherings that brought women together. Even though I went through many trials in those years in a brick and mortar shop, the Lord promoted the store into a bigger space and a better location in the last year of being in South Carolina. I am now fully online, and God is still working very strongly through Blue Butterfly Vintage. You can always check out my website at bluebutterflyvintage.com, and that's BLU butterflyvintage.com. So I hope this story encourages someone today. I'm so thankful that you joined me. I hope you all have a blessed evening and keep rising.